thank you for joining Fab After 50 today. And I understand you're going to be telling us a little bit today about raw foods.
Hi, Carrie. I'm really delighted to be here with you today, and I'll be very happy to talk to you about raw foods and what I do with it.
Terrific. How did you yourself get involved with raw foods to begin with?
Um, it was really a health decision. My husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer a few years ago. And from one day to the other, he told me that he didn't want to eat anything processed anymore at all. Plus a few other changes that no sugar, no white flour, all those sorts of things. Basically, everything that was processed and didn't look like food anymore, he didn't want to eat. So that was a bit of a shock to me initially. But then I immersed myself. I've always been a very sort of passionate cook, and I just really had to think, well, what do I prepare now? What do I cook now? And I found out about raw food very gradually. It just was more like a gradual process of adding more and more fresh foods. But then one day I read an article about a woman who had cured herself with raw food of fibromyalgia, which is a condition that I have myself. And that was just sort of it, really. I then just said, well, if she can do that, maybe I can do that. And we completely went raw from one day to the other. It wasn't that big a step anymore for us because we were already eating a lot of raw foods. And I have to say, I've now been for 18 months without medication for fibromyalgia. I feel better than I ever have in my life. I have more energy. I feel happier. I feel I have more sort of mental clarity. And all those things were just so exciting to experience that there was just no question for me that I wanted to teach other people about this.
I mean, when you say raw foods, is it just raw vegetables? I mean, what do you mean by raw foods? Are you sort of consigning yourself to a life of just having salads, from the day onwards?
Well, it's certainly not just salad, but normally when we talk about raw food, we really mean raw plant-based foods.
Right.
So that doesn't include things like raw fish and raw meat or raw eggs or anything like that, raw milk, although there are some people who include that into their raw food diet. But the way I eat is raw plant-based foods.
Right.
And that includes a lot more than salad. I mean, apart from the obvious like vegetables, fruit, and seeds, nuts. There are also things like sea vegetables, algae, mushrooms, superfoods, sprouted seeds and nuts, fermented foods. All that comes under the category of raw food. Basically, everything that's raw are foods that have been heated for no more than 42 degrees Celsius.
Right, I was going to ask you about that actually, because I know at one point people say that steamed foods were very good. So if you had steamed food that retained the nutrients, could you have steamed food have the same effect?
Absolutely. I would say that steamed food are definitely better for you than fried food. So if you think about the cooking process, let's say deep fried as like the top level of cooked.
Yeah.
I call that dead, really.
Yeah.
Sorry. And then raw food at the bottom of that as like the most living food as it comes out of the ground, off the tree, and is still alive. And there's obviously degrees in between there. And steam, the less heat you apply, the more nutrients you keep in the food. And that's why steamed vegetables are actually really healthy to eat.
Right.
Some vegetables are also better when they're cooked, so they're not as easily digestible if we eat them raw. So we have to be a bit careful there. But in my raw food classes, I often say to people, look, you don't have to eat raw all the time, but when you do cook something, try to cook it more gently, with less heat applied. Or even just slowly, like if you roast vegetables in the oven, if you roast them at 150 degrees as opposed to 250, you will see the difference in the vegetable. It's just more alive still.
I mean, and what about adding flavours? I mean, because if people like nice sort of spicy foods, I mean, can you still have that sort of strong flavour in raw food?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The variety of flavors are extraordinary. And I often serve people raw food and they don't even really realize that they're eating raw food. And it's not like, oh my God, what am I eating here? It's just like, wow, this is delicious. I'm actually in the spring, I'm theming some of my classes around particular types of food. So in January, I'm doing a class around Asian foods. We'll look at Thai, Indian, Japanese. Those are all very different flavors and they can all be incorporated. Later on, I'm going to do a Mediterranean one, so where we're looking olives, olive oil, tomatoes, peppers, aubergines, those kind of things, lasagna.
Yeah.
So there are so many, I mean, in a way, I mean, I call myself a raw chef.
Right.
I don't have a raw chef training per se, like I didn't go to a culinary school. I've learned from raw chefs like Russell James, for example. But really what I think makes a chef is somebody who can create recipes, who understands about flavors and how they relate to each other and how to use foods together to create good tasting food that people enjoy.
And you say you feel so much healthier now. What are the, in sort of like a nutshell, what are the actual health benefits that somebody could expect from if they switch to that raw food diet?
I think the first thing you can expect is more energy. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you were to switch from one day to the other from a sort of sad diet, mm-hmm. Sort of like, which is an acronym for, a standard American diet, which isn't that unlike to what we eat here in the UK, sort of normally, or a lot of people eat. If you change from one day to the other to raw, it would detox the body in a massive way. And that could feel a little bit uncomfortable for a while. Mm. If you transition into it a bit more, then usually you don't have to deal so much with detoxing and you're experiencing more of the benefits. Right. So, for example, even just drinking a green smoothie in the morning instead of a coffee will have a benefit to people. They will feel more energy, they feel more alive, because the enzymes and the nutrients are all in the food. It makes you really get more, more compressed, intense nutrition.
Right.
And one thing I often talk about to people is also crowding out. So rather than, sometimes people when they say, or women particularly, if they want to lose weight, for example, they think, oh my God, I shouldn't eat this anymore. I shouldn't have that cream cake. I shouldn't have. So they're focusing on things that they shouldn't eat. Now we're talking about something crowding out, which means eat foods that you enjoy eating, that are healthy, that will naturally let you lose weight, and automatically crowd out those foods that aren't good for you.
Right. But the impact it has on your life in general, so you feel so much better. But what happens if, certainly I was to sort of participate in a raw food diet, or go 100% raw, or even 80% raw. What happens then if you get invited to dinner with friends? Do you have to sort of be the pet? I'm already a bit of a pain, so I already have a restrictive diet for other reasons. And I know I'm always having to say, well, call ahead, what does the restaurant have? Is there anything on the menu I can eat today? Yes. If I add raw into the mix, I'd never go anywhere, I don't think. So, I mean, how easy is it to actually manage your life and still live with other people who aren't eating raw foods?
Well, I think it's as easy as you want it to be, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm not of the opinion, and I really strongly actually advise against it, to become a strict nutrition anything.
Right, okay.
I think that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Some people do, and there's lots of fooders who will tell you you cannot eat anything that's been cooked in any way. I don't believe in that. I think, eat as much raw as you can and as feels comfortable for you. And then when you go out to a dinner and you would like something cooked, then eat something cooked. Or even if you're at home and you feel you want something warm, then eat something warm. I think we need to learn to listen to our bodies much more about what's good for us and what we enjoy eating and what makes us feel good.
I don't
And
know
the
about,
nice thing, sorry.
I was going to say, but sometimes I find that my body tells me what I want. You know, if I have one day wake up with cravings for bananas, it's interesting. You have a blood test, you find out you're deficient in potassium. The bananas give you potassium. So I think
Yes,
sometimes your body very much does tell you what it is you should be
yes,
eating.
yes. I think the more healthy foods you eat, the more your body will tell you. If you only eat foods that don't have much nutrition, and that are highly processed, your body will not be as intuitive to tell you because it's dependent on sugars, on white flours, and on those comfort foods.
Yeah.
So the body isn't as fine-tuned, you see. So we need to sort of help the body along a little bit by giving it good food so that it says, oh yeah, I like that. Let's have more of that.
Yeah.
And then automatically you feel, oh, I'll choose that salad rather than the cream cake. But there are very delicious cakes in raw food, so don't worry. You know, we have the chocolate torte and the cheesecake, and it's all there.
Well,
And
and you're
it's,
going to share some of that with us, aren't you?
I hope so. Yes,
I
I
hope so.
certainly will. With the eating out, I think, go for the good foods, look what's on the menu that appeals to you the most, but don't feel restricted. Because I think if we restrict ourselves and think, oh, I can't eat this because that doesn't fit into my diet, we're actually depriving ourselves of the pleasure. And that's the pleasure of eating with other people out.
And that is such an important part of life, isn't it, really?
Absolutely, totally. I think that is part of being well, and so diet isn't everything. It's just one little step in being well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, we should explain, this is really an introduction, isn't it? We're going to be doing lots more and more food. You're going to be sharing so much more with us. And I'm sure a lot of the readers will be really looking forward to that as well.
Yes, well, I am too. I'm really looking forward to meeting the readers more and getting more involved and sharing with you ways that we can all, just live a little bit healthier.
And perhaps what we should do is, should we ask them, if people have questions about raw food, obviously we're welcoming those, aren't we? So we can answer
Yes,
those in future
absolutely.
sessions.
I would really love that. I mean, on your Facebook page, if we could have people, comment and tell us what they want to hear about, particularly around food, around healthy food, obviously, I'm really happy to answer those questions if I can, and write recipes and information around those topics.
Wonderful. We can obviously be sharing this on the website as well, so they can contact us, leave questions either under the video on the article on the website, or they can post questions under the video on YouTube. Again, they can post questions on the Facebook page. Lots of ways to get in touch with us to actually put questions forward that we can answer next time.
Yeah, I really like that. Great.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Carrie, for having me today. Thank you. Brilliant.